Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the big stories behind familiar topics.
All right, let's get right into it. We all think we know Valentine's Day, right? But believe me, the real history of this holiday is, well, it's a lot more complicated, a little bit wild, and honestly, way more fascinating than you'd ever guess.
So to really get this, we've got to go way back. We're going to peel back the layers and look at the pretty murky and honestly kind of contradictory ancient roots of this whole thing.
You know, long before any saint had his name on February 14th, the Romans were celebrating something called Lupercalia. And let me tell you, it was a pretty rowdy festival. It had some very unique, and to our modern ears, very strange traditions.
Okay, so this is where the story kind of splits in two, and things get really interesting. On one side, you've got this wild pagan festival, Lupercalia. I'm talking about an erotic lottery, where men would literally draw a woman's name from a box to be their partner for the festival. And get this, a ritual where women were gently whipped with goat skins to, promote fertility. Then, on the complete other side of the spectrum, you have these pious legends about Saint Valentine. Or, actually, a few different martyred saints named Valentine. The stories say one of them secretly married soldiers when the emperor had forbidden it. Another one supposedly wrote a note to the jailer's daughter right before he was executed, and he signed it, "From your Valentine." I mean, you couldn't get two more different vibes, right?
Now, you've probably heard the story that the church just slapped a saint's name on a pagan holiday to take over, right? It's a popular tick. But the truth is a little more complicated than that. Modern historians have looked at this, and they point out that while the timing is super convenient, there's actually no direct ancient proof that Pope Gelasius I did this on purpose. So that connection we all talk about, it's really more of a historical theory than a cold, hard fact.
So, if the whole Lupercalia connection is a bit shaky, then where did all the romance stuff come from? Well, for that, we've got to jump forward in time to the Middle Ages. This is where the holiday really transforms from this kind of somber day for a martyr into a day for sweethearts.
And the big turning point, believe it or not, seems to have less to do with ancient Rome and a lot more to do with birds. Yeah, birds. See, across medieval Europe, this popular belief started spreading that February 14th was the exact day that birds chose their mates for the year.
And this one little piece of folklore, this idea about birds, just sparked this whole explosion of traditions and superstitions. People started thinking, hey, if it works for the birds, why not us? And this led to some really charming beliefs, like the idea that you'd end up marrying the first single person you saw on Valentine's Day, or that the kind of bird you spotted could predict your future spouse's job, or even how rich they were.
Okay, so we've got saints, we've got pagan rituals, we've got birds, but how did we get to the multi-billion-dollar industry of cards and chocolates and flowers that we have today? Well, as they say, let's follow the money.
It really didn't happen overnight. It was this gradual process that just picked up a ton of steam over the last couple of centuries. You start with handwritten love notes back in the 1400s. Then, around 1800, the first commercial cards start showing up. By the 1840s, you could even get these really fancy mechanical valentines with little moving parts. But the real game changer, that was 1913. That's when Hallmark gets into the game. And just boom, they turned a personal sentiment into a massive, booming business.
But here's the thing. As this commercial tradition started to spread around the globe, it didn't stay the same. Let's take a look at how different cultures have adapted it, and in some cases, completely reinvented it. This is so cool because it really shows how flexible the holiday is. In Brazil, they move it to June and call it Lover's Day just to avoid carnival season. Over in Japan, it's the women who give men chocolates on February 14th, and they have different kinds for colleagues versus a true love. Then the men have to give gifts back a month later on White Day. South Korea takes it even further. They have a Black Day in April where single people get together to eat black noodles. And then you have places like Finland and the Philippines, where the day is all about celebrating friendship, or even becomes an occasion for these huge mass weddings. It's wild.
But, this massive global popularity and all that commercial success, it hasn't come without a cost. It's actually led to a lot of criticism and a big modern rethink about what the holiday is even for.
Some sociologists make this really interesting point. They argue the holiday has become what they call a social construct. And what that basically means is that it's become less about a genuine, spontaneous feeling and more about a social obligation. You feel like you have to buy stuff to prove you care.
And the numbers, they're just staggering. Get this, in the US alone,
the amount of money spent on Valentine's gifts just for friends has exploded. It went from about $737 million back in 2010 to over $2 billion today, and that's not even counting what people spend on their partners.
This critique from Dr. Sophie King-Hill really just hits the nail on the head. She says, capitalism has weaponized love, one of our greatest needs, for financial gain under the guise of Valentine's Day. I mean, wow. That really captures the heart of the backlash, right? The feeling that this fundamental human emotion has basically been hijacked for profit.
So, because of all this, in response to the commercialism and the pressure, the very definition of Valentine's Day is changing all over again, literally right before our eyes.
We're just celebrating all kinds of relationships now. I mean, sure, romantic partners are still the biggest group getting gifts, but look at this. A huge chunk now goes to family members, friends, and yep, even our pets. The whole idea of who your Valentine can be has gotten so much bigger.
And this has led to some totally new, unofficial traditions. You've got Galentine's Day on February 13th for celebrating female friends. There's also this vocal anti-Valentine's movement, with everything from sarcastic cards that just say, meh, to events like broken-hearted discos. My personal favorite might be the animal charity that, for a donation, offered to write your ex's name inside a cat's litter box. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. People are totally reclaiming the day on their own terms.
So when you boil it all down, what even is Valentine's Day? Is it a tribute to a martyred saint? A leftover from a wild Roman festival? Is it just a commercial invention? Or is it simply whatever we choose to make it? The real story of Valentine's Day seems to be one of constant change, from ancient rituals to medieval birds, from Hallmark cards to Galentine's Day, and that leaves us with one final thought. Maybe the real meaning of Valentine's Day isn't what it was, but what we decide it's going to be, right here, right now.